Breaking news just coming to us here at GB News, and it's this, it's a whopper. The French government has hit back at Reform UK's plan to use the Navy to return migrants to France. This, of course, is Operation Fortress, and a spokesperson for the French Interior Ministry has said Operation Fortress is a violation of French sovereignty, as well as maritime and international law. Nigel Farage says the measure would be the biggest military operation in the English Channel since the Second World War, but the Health Secretary Yvette Cooper says the government is working to strengthen.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Do you think
Britain's borders?
You've got Reform and Restore rowing over text messages, and we've got Reform trying to dodge questions about dodgy finances. Look, our focus is going to carry on being about how we improve law enforcement, how we strengthen our border security, to make sure that the number of small boats keeps coming down as it has done over the last year, but how we go much further, because frankly nobody should be making these dangerous crossings that undermine border security and put lives at risk.
Well, that's Yvette Cooper there saying nobody should make these crossings, but it's worth pointing out that 2,057 have made the crossing since Andy Burnham was made Prime Minister. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, you were there this morning at the press conference with Nigel Farage and Zia Youssef, and you asked the key question: what about the French? They've already come back. It's a mais non from Macron.
Well, exactly, and this is the major problem for Nigel Farage. Of course, this is a popular policy. People in the UK are desperate to see the boat stopped. Again and again, this comes out as the #1 issue concerning British citizens. But there are some problems with the plan. There are legal problems. For example, at the moment, it would be pretty much impossible to enact any of this. Reform says that could be undone by leaving the European Court of Human Rights. They would also, in all reality, have to repeal quite a lot of the Human Rights Act, which is enshrined in our own British law. Again, that would be possible if they have a big enough majority. Logistical issues too. Is the Royal Navy even ready for an enormous operation like this? Reform's argument to that is, well, what's the point of the Royal Navy if it's not defending our borders? And they say that they could invest more money in the Navy if they weren't keeping migrants in hotels. But the big question is what happens if, and probably when, the French say no. The French so far have shown very little appetite for taking migrants back to their shores when they've come over to the UK, even though there's a £600 million deal in place. Britain is paying France that much money to keep those migrants away from Britain. Why would they change their minds? All of this seems to be dependent on there being a new government in France. There are elections next year. Emmanuel Macron is a lame duck president at the moment. There are elections. The National Rally might get in. Jordan Bardella, who will probably be their nominee, might be a bit more amelient to this plan. But that's a lot of ifs, that's a lot of mights. I asked Nigel Farage about this a little bit earlier on. Let's hear what he had to say.
Can I just say, for the French, there are big upsides. Very big upsides. Life from Dunkirk, through Calais, through Ardelot, Wimereux, all those rather beautiful little villages on Côte d'Opale. Life is now hell. People stay locked in their houses. You can't resell a house. There's crime, there's litter, there's vandalism, there's gang violence, there are stabbings, there are shootings. I mean, dealing with this problem would be a great relief to the people of northern France. So that's the first thing I would say. There is a big upside for the French in this. Have we had talks with some senior French political figures about this? Yes. And I think attitudes are starting to change. Attitudes towards this are starting to change. You know, and they're also beginning to realise that we have given them a lot of money, and this would in fact be helping them with their objectives. So are we there yet? Can I guarantee you that they'll welcome this with open arms? I can't. But can I say there is a softening of attitude towards this position? Yes. And of course, we have some very major French elections coming up next year.
Operation Fortress Clash, the high-stakes border gamble threatening to fracture Anglo-French relations and redefine British sovereignty. Welcome back to the channel, where we uncover the raw mechanics of power, policy, and political performance that shape our nation. If you appreciate uncompromising political analysis delivered with true British rigour, do ensure you click that subscribe button right now, because your support genuinely keeps this independent platform alive and thriving. Today, on Britain Underneath, let us plunge straight into the murky, turbulent waters of English Channel politics, where a massive diplomatic dispute has just erupted between London and Paris. It appears the political theatre in Westminster has reached a boiling point once again, and this time the reverberations are echoing loudly across the Channel, directly into the Elysee Palace. Reform UK has formally unveiled Operation Fortress, a sweeping proposal pledging to launch what they describe as the largest military deployment in the Channel since the Second World War. The premise is as bold as it is contentious, deploying Royal Navy vessels to intercept small migrant craft in British waters and escorting them directly back to the beaches of northern France. Predictably, Paris has not taken this proposition lying down. Within hours of the announcement, the French Interior Ministry struck back with unmistakable coldness, declaring that any unilateral naval manoeuvre on French soil or within their territorial waters would constitute a direct violation of French national sovereignty, alongside a flagrant breach of international maritime law.
So there you go. Nigel Farage not offering any cast-iron guarantees, but saying that the attitudes are softening. It seems that reform is depending on a change of government. That is quite likely, but could the new French government also say no? I think this could lead to big diplomatic problems with the French and potentially them punishing us in trade.
Evidently superb. Now then, let's get to my next guest. A change of political landscape could help precipitate Operation Fortress working. Let's now speak to the journalist, the author, the advisor to Jordan Bardella, who, of course, is the president of the National Rally Party, Charles-Henri Gallois. Charles-Henri, it's always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. I enjoyed our time very much together in Brussels when, of course, you were Monsieur Frexit. On to today's topic of discussion. Operation Fortress, Nigel Farage has intimated, would require the cooperation of the French. We've heard a moment ago the French Interior Minister saying this would be a violation of French sovereignty. But if your boss, Jordan Bardella, were to be the president of France, could there be more cooperation with Nigel Farage if he were to be our Prime Minister?
Yes, of course. I mean, if I were British, I would trust Nigel to deliver about that, because of a big and a great British patriot. But sure, we have talked about it when we met Jordan Bardella and Nigel Farage. The idea and the first issue that you have and the French have is that Emmanuel Macron's government is in favor of mass immigration, and that's why you have that lot of illegal immigration in Calais and Dunkirk, but even legal migrants that net try their chance to go to the UK. So if there is a national rally government next year, I mean, you wouldn't have this issue, because we would send each of them back to their country, because that's where they should be. They shouldn't be in the UK, they shouldn't be in France, they should be in the country where they belong. So I think that's the main point. And of course, we could cooperate, both France and UK, two great nations and two great navy, to ensure and to protect European borders, and also to work together to send them.
Now, before we dissect the strategic feasibility of sending warships to handle civilian maritime traffic, take a breath and consider the sheer political manoeuvring at play. We are witnessing a classical battle of optics versus reality. On one side, Nigel Farage and his deputy leadership present this as an impenetrable wall, arguing that if the Royal Navy cannot safeguard the homeland from unauthorised border crossings, its existence comes into question. On the other side, French officials and international legal experts view the entire plan as pure political fantasy, pointing out that under long-established maritime conventions, you simply cannot force human beings onto foreign shores without the explicit invitation of the host nation. If you are enjoying this breakdown so far and want to stay informed on every major political shift rocking the United Kingdom, please consider subscribing to Britain Underneath right this second. It costs you nothing, but for a growing channel like ours, every single subscription helps us produce more deep dive commentary. Also, make sure you stay tuned until the very end of this narrative, because the strategic plot twist involving the upcoming French presidential elections changes everything you thought you knew about this dispute. Let us examine the government response in Westminster. Downing Street and the Labour administration have wasted no time in dismissing the proposal as a reheated political stunt designed to grab headlines rather than offer workable solutions. Ministers have pointed out that when the Royal Navy was given primacy over channel operations back in 2022, crossings did not magically vanish.
Instead, the operational reality of managing fragile rubber dinghies in treacherous sea lanes requires specialised border security and law enforcement, not heavy naval destroyers or armed marines looking down the barrel of a diplomatic crisis. The government maintains that their ongoing multi-million-pound bilateral treaty with Paris, focused on intelligence sharing and beach interception, remains the only sensible pathway forward. Yet the frustration among the British electorate is palpable, and that is precisely what Reform UK is tapping into with such sharp precision. Channel communities from Dover to Calais are exhausted by years of paralysis, human smuggling networks, and soaring accommodation costs.
Nigel Farage has insistently argued that northern French coastal villages are suffering immensely under the strain of illegal smuggling gangs, asserting that a decisive return policy would ultimately alleviate pressure on both sides of the channel. But when pressed by journalists on how he intends to bypass French refusal, the answers turn remarkably speculative. The suggestion that His Majesty's armed forces could simply disembark individuals onto French beaches regardless of whether Paris consents, borders on a diplomatic declaration of hostility. Please take a brief moment right here to hit that subscribe button if you have not already done so. Encouraging and pleading for your support is vital because independent political commentary relies entirely on audience engagement to survive in today's digital space. Subscribing helps Britain Underneath reach thousands more viewers who deserve mature, unvarnished British analysis.
The plot thickens significantly when we look across the sea to the future of French domestic politics. The current French administration, under President Emmanuel Macron, may be unyielding in its defence of international treaties, but France itself is heading toward a monumental political junction. Advisers close to Jordan Bardella and Marine Le Pen's National Rally have already dropped fascinating hints. Representatives from the French right-wing opposition have signalled that should power shift in Paris during the upcoming elections, a newly aligned right-leaning French government might actually view Anglo-French border security through an entirely different lens. They argue that a joint sovereign effort to curb irregular migration could align with their own domestic agenda, potentially transforming what is currently a legal wall into a cooperative bilateral framework. However, relying on foreign election outcomes to validate domestic policy is a massive gamble. What happens if the political balance in Paris remains unchanged? What happens if French authorities decide to retaliate against British unilateral actions by enforcing trade friction, port delays, or diplomatic isolation? The economic fallout of a breakdown in cross-channel transport would dwarf the political points scored on a press conference stage. Former naval commanders have already expressed deep scepticism, noting that turning warships into border shuttles without foreign consent is operational madness that risks distracting the military from its core global defence obligations. To navigate these chaotic political times effectively, you need to stay informed with calm, analytical precision rather than reactionary outrage.
take a breath and look at the broader pattern. Notice how major policy announcements often coincide with internal party pressures, financial inquiries, or dips in constituency polling. Politics is rarely just about the topic being debated on screen. It is about controlling the narrative cycle before your opponents control it for you. If you value this mature, slightly sassy, and thoroughly detailed examination of national affairs, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to the channel right now. Pleading for your subscription is not just a formality. It directly fuels our ability to research, analyse, and deliver top-tier content every single week. Joining the Britain Underneath community ensures you never miss a critical breakdown of the moves happening behind closed doors in Westminster and beyond. As we look toward the coming months, the battle over Britain's borders, naval jurisdiction, and international law will only intensify. Operation Fortress may face insurmountable legal hurdles today, but it has successfully forced every major political party to reframe their position on state sovereignty and maritime enforcement. Whether this leads to a genuine overhaul of border strategy or remains another controversial chapter in British political history depends entirely on how the electorate reacts and how diplomatic relations evolve across Europe. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. Make sure you stay watching our growing library of content, hit that subscribe button to support the channel, and keep returning to Britain Underneath for the sharpest, most intriguing political insights you will find anywhere online. We will see you in the very next video.